you got to take what you need. You got to ask for it and demand it from yourself and the world around you. You're an adult. Nobody else is going to do it for you. Nobody. Welcome to the Ignited Recovery Podcast, a new way forward for anyone looking for answers but feeling left out. If you've been searching for empowerment, triumph, and purpose, you've found them right here. You won't hear the same solutions, and you're not going to have any excuses to fall back on, because Ignited Recovery allows heroes to rise and become their best selves. I'm Dr. Adi Jaffe, and I can't wait to be your guide on this journey. Are you ready to become an ignited hero? Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Recovery Secrets Podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe, and I wonder if you can even remember what it was like being a kid and having can we just call it like a pretty limited set of worries, right? I've got Kai and Leo, and when they wake up in the morning, they've just got to think about what they want to eat. They don't even have to think about how to make it. They just have to think about what it is they want to eat, and then I'll go make it for them. And then, at least now we got them putting the dishes in the sink. But then the next thing they got to worry about is getting into a car. Somebody else will drive them to school. And then they get out of the car, and then somebody will tell them what to do all day and what class they're in and what book to read or what game to play or when it's time to eat lunch. They don't really have to worry about all that much in the middle of all that. Now, I remember being a kid, and yes, they're worried about fitting in with their friends and all that stuff, but, relatively small scale worries. And then the day ends, and they come home, and they have to fill up their time, so they've got to worry about what game they want to play or which Lego set they want to occupy their time with. Eventually, it's time to eat dinner. Again, they don't have to make any of it. They just have to eat it and tell us what they don't like. And then it's time to read a book, take a shower, and go to bed. I can barely remember that a time like that even existed in my life, because life is full now. It is full from the moment I wake up around 5:40 till the moment I fall asleep. And I go to sleep pretty early because I go to get up out of bed and go work out that early. I'm in bed by 10:30. By 11 at least, I'm passed out. Now, we've talked about self-care. We talk about self-care a lot in the Wednesday relationship episode. But I got to tell you, this last month has been tough. And it's been tough because we've traveled a lot relative to us. So I've been gone about 10 or 11 days on 2 separate trips. And then I came back, was at home for a day and a half. I came back early because Sophie wanted me to go to an event with her. So I came back early, went to this event with Sophie. The next day was our only day together at the beginning of the month. And then she went away on a 4.5 day work trip. As soon as she came back, we had a weekend workshop locally here, which made for essentially 3 weekends in a row where we didn't have the weekend off. And normally we're pretty good about having the vast majority of the weekend off. Then we got 3 days off, and then we hosted her best friend and her family, which was a family of 6 in the house. So it's been a lot. And, I was kind of half joking before about what the kids have to do. Well, each day we've got to worry about making them the food, getting them to school, taking care of them when they, getting them picked back up, taking care of them when they would return here, paying bills, prepping taxes, prepping the food, making travel arrangements. Just, life is full. And it dawned on me when this family left us here 2.5 days ago that I was exhausted. But I'm about to drop kind of exhaustion. I just had no room for air. There was nothing there. I like to joke that my exhaustion was tired. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but this is kind of the thing that happens when your life fills up. You cram more and more and more stuff in it. And if you're anything like me, you really only realize that it's gotten there when it is too much. Up until that point, you're just building up stress and anxiety. Now, I'm pretty good at not letting things happen this way. This is probably the only time in the last 12 months that I can remember. Maybe there was one other time. So once or twice a year, I get to this place. And when I do, I know what my number one job is. And so that's what I want to focus on with you here today. The lessons I've learned, the things that I've put in place, and the system that I use to not get here often. And then also tell you a little bit about what it is that I am doing now we're now actually 2.5 days after this feeling of overwhelm. And to be honest, I'm almost out of it already, which is completely different than what life used to look like. So the way I'm going to split this up is, how can you tell if you're heading towards this place, what to do once you're there, and then how to try to make sure that this never happens to you. Okay, so how do you know that you are reaching this place of overwhelm? Most people, I just talked about this in a workshop yesterday, most people tell me that they only realize it when they've broken down. So maybe for you, this means reaching a place where you just can't think anymore. You got to sit on a couch and just binge watch TV. Or if you're like some of the clients I work with, you stuff yourself with donuts, or you drink a ton of alcohol, or you smoke a bunch of weed, or you do some other things to just shut down because your brain, your body is saying, I cannot do this anymore. I'm done. Stick a fork in me. Well, that's one way of finding out how you're doing. But I would like to take you one level, one step before that, to get you to the point where you're starting to pay attention to other things that might be signals that the impending doom is coming. Some of these are things that have happened in your life, but maybe you didn't realize that they were a sign of this break in your reality. Maybe you didn't realize that they were this kind of signal. So one of them, do you find yourself with a very short fuse? Do you find yourself in this place where you get anxious or depressed or angry or irritated, whatever it is that this plays out like for you, at almost everybody? And if this is happening, sometimes, even though it's happening to you internally, you start blaming everybody else for your life falling apart. Nobody's paying enough attention to what you need. Nobody gives you the time. Nobody's giving you the effort. Nobody's giving you the fill in the blank that is relevant to you. But what you notice is that you're firing off really, really quickly. Another option is that you notice that you're slipping on some of the usual things that are habitual for you. What do I mean by that? Like maybe you exercise on a regular basis and you notice that you're falling off and you're not exercising as much as otherwise. Maybe literally like showering and brushing your teeth is not happening as often as it usually does. Might sound weird to some of you. Happens to a lot of people I work with, right? Where they used to take a shower every day or at least every other day. And next thing they know, they're taking a shower once a week or every other week. Drinking as much water as you need. I said already, brushing your teeth. Anything else that is habitual that you normally do and you notice yourself falling off of, a lot of times the reason is anxiety, fear, being busy. People will talk about that quite a bit. But it could be a sign that you're heading towards one of those breakdowns. And another big one is if you never feel rested. Even if you got a good night of sleep, even if you laid comfortably in bed and you woke up when you expected to and you don't feel rested, one of the things that it's possible is happening is this stress-induced, constant and progressive movement towards just a breakdown. Now, I don't know if you can relate. This used to be me every single day, to be perfectly honest. I would fall asleep, anxious about everything that didn't go right that day, worried about everything that needed to happen the next day. And then I would wake up right back in that state. It was almost like my brain would only shut off when I was asleep. I thought that was the constant state I was supposed to be in. I would snap at everybody. I was cold and distant always because I was always preoccupied with all these worries and concerns. Now, if you've ever found yourself in a place like that, you might have just taken it for granted. I talk to a lot of people who assume this is what their life needs to look like. But I'm going to tell you here today that it's time to actually get to work. It's time to do something to resolve that. If you haven't listened to the chronic stress episode that I've done, go back and listen to that one. We'll have the link in the show notes here. Putting yourself in this sort of a state over time is incredibly, incredibly damaging to your well-being. Now, there are a lot of things you need to put in place. I'm going to talk later about how to make sure you don't get to a state like this. But I'm going to share with you what I've been doing over the last week to get myself out of it. Because here's the thing. A lot of you who are listening right now and are realizing you've been in a place like this for years maybe, talking about how to not get into this sort of state isn't really helpful for you, right? You're there right now. So let's just talk about how to get out of it. First of all, I know myself that when I find myself in a place like this, I need support. So the first thing I did is I told Sophie. Now, just to remind you what got me in that state, not only had we traveled a lot, so we were at least half the month, one of us was home alone with the kids. And so that was extra stress. We had filled up the weekends. I joke about this all the time, but our house is like a hostel. People come in and out all the time. And then we hosted this family of 6. So the moment I realized this was happening and the family had left, it was actually the day that they were about to leave, but I realized that I was coming to a breaking point. I turned to Sophie and I said, hey, I need a few days at least of nobody coming by the house. I just need time to decompress. I need the silence that happens when the kids go to sleep and there's nobody else we need to worry about here. And she listened. And so the first thing that you need to do is know when to say no. What am I not willing to accept anymore if I want to be able to recharge? The next thing is I doubled down on the basics. So the moment I realized it, one of the first things I did, Alex Sharfin was the guy that first made me really pay attention to this. So thank you for this, Alex, is I drank a bunch of water. I realized I hadn't really been drinking water. I've been kind of surviving on coffee and just willpower for about a couple of weeks there. Started drinking a ton of water. Started getting back to my exercise routine to the best of my ability that day already and the next day, et cetera, et cetera. And really tried to take care of my eating. Tried to feed my body as many whole foods as I could, trying to nourish it. And the reason all that's important is my brain is being fed by the machine, the body that is taking care of it. Well, I got to take care of that body if I want my brain, my anxiety, my stress, everything else that goes on between my ears to have an opportunity to recover as quickly as possible. I also then contacted a friend and set up a pretty quick hangout. This was dinner in this specific occasion. Thank you, Chris, for jumping to. And we hung out. We talked a little shop, we talked a little work, but really more than that, we connected. I needed socialization that didn't stress me out. Now, some of you might say, I don't want socialization. I want to be alone. That's all good. But circle the wagons. Get the support you need. If the support you need is to be alone, that's fine. But don't be shy to ask for help if you need it. And then lastly, and this was hard for me, and it might be hard for you as well, I had to give myself permission to take it easy for a couple of days, to build up my reserves. I feel lazy if I'm not busy all the time. I'm definitely one of those people who's comparing myself to everybody else's supposed work schedules that I see in social media and all over the place. And I'm always feeling like I need to get more done. Wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go to sleep at midnight after meetings all day. But definitely when this was going on, I gave myself permission for self-compassion because I knew that that's what I needed in the moment. And I'm going to tell you this, you know it, but you got to take what you need. You got to ask for it and demand it from yourself and the world around you. You're an adult. Nobody else is going to do it for you. Nobody. This is what it takes to be independent, right? Self-care, self-knowledge, and doing the things that are required of you to be at your best is up to us. It's up to you. Because if you don't make sure that you have the tools in place to recognize, hey, I'm getting short. I'm getting mad at my colleagues and my work and office mates all the time. Yeah, it could be about them, but it could also be that I'm stressing myself out too much and things are building up and I need to take care of it. If you don't have a way to recognize and then respond to your own needs, they're going to lead to a crash. I know this firsthand. When Sophie and I first started dating, and it happened before, but I really only noticed it with Sophie. Whenever we would go on vacation or whenever school would end, because we met when I was in school, it would take me 3 or 4 days to land into vacation mode. Up until that moment, I'd be stressed out. I'd be anxious. I would wake up and go to sleep exactly like I had during my everyday life. And then on the 4th or maybe the 5th day, if it extended, I'd get sick. Because like we talked about in that chronic stress episode, chronic stress leads to immune dysfunction. And so I would stress myself out and hype myself up until my immune system was really compromised. And then it would slowly land every time we would take time off. And then I'd get sick because I had no protection. And so if you just keep driving yourself and don't pay attention to these signals, you're going to go down. And then you'll lose way more time than if you just take care of things on the front end. And that leads me to the last point here for today. And that is how to make sure that this doesn't happen. How to make sure that you minimize the number of times a year, a decade, and for the rest of your life that this is going to play out for you. And I got to tell you that I don't know a way to do this completely alone, but I've picked up a lot of tips. And we've talked about some of these, so some of these will sound familiar to you. But one of them is self-care rituals have to be part of your life. They just do. Stop looking at them as indulgences and start looking at them as part of your job of taking care of life. At the end of each one of the Wednesday episodes, we ask our guests what their self-care is. So I got to tell you, there is no single answer. You don't have to follow my system. You don't have to follow Sophie's system. You don't have to follow anybody specific, but you better come up with your own. If you do not, what you're doing is you are neglecting the ability to diffuse stress. Stress will come up. Stress will build up. There's nothing we can do to make sure that that doesn't happen. But if you have a self-care routine, you will have a system, a habitual, ritualized system that will allow you to gradually diffuse that stress as it shows up in your life. That's number one. Secondly, you need support. It is hard to do this alone, and a lot of us don't want to ask for help, but find some people you can ask help from. You noticed I asked my wife for help, from Sophie, in this story. I also asked a friend for help. That took me more years than asking for my partner. And then I also have other people that I turn to. You know, a lot of the clients that we have participate in our weekly chats. We now have 3 of them. We're about to add a 4th one any day now. And these are like online groups that people can just join from their phone or their laptop or their desktop, their tablet, and get some support, ask questions, get help for what's going on in their life. If this is something you want, we're actually open. I think when this podcast goes live, we are still opening registration in those. A few times a year, we let new people into those chats. If you want to be able to have support multiple times a week from professionals and peers and people that are like you, and you don't want to go find a therapist or try to figure out who's good, you don't want to drive to an office once a week, you just want to have it multiple times a week available to you, this might be an amazing option for you. So we'll put a link to that as well in the bottom, and you can see that, and that can help you. But if it's not us, find some support. Stop trying to do this stuff on your own. That is massively, massively, massively important. And the last one is to me the best tip. We get so focused on the things we have to do. We get so focused on the musts, the work, the commitments. You got to start having some fun. Got to do it. So I don't know if you've noticed or not, but on Instagram, I've been sharing, I'm teaching my kids how to DJ, and I've now started teaching them how to make music as well. These were things that I loved in my past. Like from the time I was 14, 15 till the time I was in my mid-20s, making music was a huge part of my life. I enjoy it. It's fun. It's like a break of in the monotony of life. It's like a sunshine that just lightens up, brightens up my entire existence. I urge you to either reconnect with something that used to be fun for you and that you've let go of, or find something that is just pure joy. I'm going to do a workshop here in the near future about our needs and motivation, and you're going to see how joy factors into all of it. This relates back to the half full, half empty glass segment I did a couple weeks ago. But you got to enjoy life, guys. I got to tell you, it has been years, I would say 8 to 10 years since I found myself in this place where every time I would take a vacation, I would be a miserable son of a bitch for 3 to 4 days and then sick for 2 to 3 more, which would mean the entire first week of vacation just sucked. It's been a long time, and the only reason it's been a long time is because I put these things in place to help me overcome the struggle, to help me maintain a high level of functioning that still doesn't hurt me, my body, my soul, my mind over and over and over. So now it's not like I'm foolproof. I deal with this once a year, sometimes twice a year, but it's far more rare. And I'm talking to you 2.5 days after the hitting the wall phase for me, and I'm almost 100% back because I have the system in place to do it. And if you can figure this out for yourself, it'll help you live longer. It'll help your relationships in your life be stronger, more secure, and better, just more full of fulfillment, because you're no longer going to be taking out your own frustration about your levels of stress and your breakdowns on people around you. All right. I hope this was useful for you. The weekend is coming up, so hopefully you're finding some ways to introduce and induce and shoot in a little fun for yourself. Do it. It'll serve you well. And if you need a little bit of that self-care, take it for yourself. Do me a favor, take a screenshot of this. Tell me what resonated the most. I can't wait to hear from you, or just DM us or send me an email, info@ignited.com. Love you all so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Ignited Heroes Recovery Podcast. I really hope you found the information here useful, and that we'll see you back here next week. And look, I want to make sure that this podcast is the most useful it can be for you, so please let me know by emailing info@ignited.com if there are any specific topics or questions you'd like to have addressed. As usual, if you like this episode, I would love for you to leave us a 5-star review and rating. Thanks, and see you next week.